Hey everyone, Sophia here. Welcome to Revenge Shift, where the best stories come to life. Hit subscribe for your daily dose. The conference room on the 42nd floor of Apex Technologies had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Seattle. On a clear day, you could see Mount Rainier. Today, gray clouds pressed against the glass like they were trying to get in, and I felt the same pressure building inside my chest as I sat at the long mahogany table, surrounded by the company's leadership team. 14 executives, 13 of them white, all of them watching me with expressions ranging from uncomfortable to openly hostile as CEO. Nathan Graves stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, jaw tight. "We need to discuss performance issues in the product development division," Nathan said, his voice carrying the clipped authority of someone who'd never been told no in his life. At 48, he was boyishly handsome in the way wealthy men often are. Expensive haircut, perfect teeth, a tan that came from ski trips and yacht vacations. "Specifically, we need to address leadership failures that have resulted in missed deadlines and budget overruns." I kept my expression neutral, hands folded on the table in front of me. I'd been director of product development for 3 years, and my division had consistently exceeded targets. We'd launched 4 major products ahead of schedule. We'd brought 2 innovations to market that had generated over $80 million in revenue. My team had won the company's Excellence Award 2 years running. But I knew what was coming. I'd known for weeks, ever since I'd started asking questions about certain financial discrepancies I'd noticed. Ever since I'd begun quietly documenting irregularities that didn't add up. The Q3 launch was 2 weeks behind schedule, Nathan continued, looking directly at me. The budget came in 15% over projection. And I've received multiple complaints about leadership style and team morale. The Q3 launch was delayed because engineering resources were reallocated without consulting my division. I said calmly. We still delivered a successful product that exceeded revenue projections by 30%. As for the budget, those overruns were approved by finance for necessary feature additions that the client specifically requested, and I've never received any complaints about morale. In fact, my division has the highest employee satisfaction scores in the company. Nathan's expression hardened. "That's not the feedback I'm receiving." "Then I'd like to see the specific complaints so I can address them," I said, keeping my voice level. "I believe in transparency and accountability. I don't think you're in a position to make demands." "Jordan," Nathan said, and there it was, the shift in tone that told me we were past the point of professional discourse. "Frankly, your defensiveness is part of the problem. You're not open to feedback. You're not collaborative. And multiple people have expressed concerns about your capability to lead at this level." Around the table, executives shifted uncomfortably. I saw Sarah Chen from legal glance at her notes, her expression carefully blank. Tom Patterson from operations was staring at the table. Jennifer Wu, the CFO, was watching Nathan with a small frown. Only Logan Mitchell from accounting met my eyes, and what I saw there was anger. "I'd like to see documentation of these concerns," I repeated. "Performance reviews, specific incidents, formal complaints. I deserve to understand what I'm being accused of so I can respond appropriately." "You're not being accused of anything," Nathan said, his tone taking on a patronizing gentleness that made my stomach turn. "We're simply recognizing that sometimes people are promoted beyond their natural capabilities. There's no shame in that. You've worked very hard. But the reality is that this role requires a different skill set, a different level of strategic thinking." The subtext was so obvious it might as well have been written in neon. I was a black woman in a leadership role at a tech company run by white men. I'd been promoted on merit, earned my position through years of exceptional work, but Nathan was reframing my success as affirmative action and my competence as inadequacy. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked, though I already knew. "We're restructuring the product development division. Effective immediately, you being reassigned to a senior analyst position reporting to whoever we bring in as the new director." Nathan paused, watching for my reaction. "We think this is the best decision for both you and the company. A demotion." After 3 years of exceptional performance, they were demoting me 2 levels and removing me from leadership entirely. "And if I don't accept this reassignment?" I asked quietly. Nathan's expression shifted to something colder. "Then we'll accept your resignation with a standard severance package. But I should be clear, Jordan, if you choose to leave, your employment here will be classified as voluntary termination. No reference, no recommendation. And given the performance concerns we've documented, I'd think carefully about burning bridges." The threat was explicit. Accept humiliation or face professional destruction. I looked around the table at faces I'd worked with for years. Tom, who I'd helped get his promotion last year. Jennifer, whose budget proposals I'd always supported. David Kim from sales, whose wife I'd sent flowers to when she was in the hospital. Melissa Harris from marketing, who'd cried on my shoulder when her father died. Not one of them met my eyes. Not one of them spoke up. I need a moment, I said, standing up. I'd like to collect my thoughts before responding. That's fine, Nathan said, his voice suggesting he'd already won. Take 5 minutes. But Jordan, I want to be very clear about something. He leaned forward, hands flat on the table. She was always just a diversity hire anyway. Her work has been substandard for months. We're being generous by offering the analyst position instead of immediate termination. The words hung in the air like acid. Around the table, people flinched. Jennifer's head snapped up, shock written across her face. Logan's hands clenched into fists. But Nathan wasn't looking at them. He was looking at me, making sure I understood exactly what he thought of me, of my work, of my place in his company. I felt something cold and clarifying settle over me. This wasn't about performance. This was about punishment. I'd seen things I wasn't supposed to see, asked questions I wasn't supposed to ask, and now I was being removed before I could become a real problem. I'll need to collect my personal items, I said, my voice absolutely steady. Of course. Tom, would you have security escort Jordan to her office? Just to ensure a smooth transition. Security. Like I was a threat. Like I was being fired for cause. That won't be necessary, I started to say, but Nathan was already picking up the phone. It's protocol, he said. Nothing personal. Everything about this was personal. 10 minutes later, I stood in my corner office on the 38th floor, while 2 security guards waited by the door. My desk was already clean. I'd packed most of my personal items over the past week, after realizing which direction this was heading. The box sitting on my desk held 3 framed photos, a few books, and the Product Excellence Award my team had won last year. I picked up the box, took one last look at the office I'd earned through talent and hard work, and walked toward the door. The security guards fell into step beside me, one on each side, as if I might suddenly bolt or cause a scene. We walked down the hallway past cubicles where my team was working. Heads turned, conversations stopped. People saw me being escorted out like a criminal, and I could see them processing what that meant. We reached the elevator bank. One of the guards pressed the button. We waited in uncomfortable silence. And then Logan Mitchell appeared, laptop bag slung over his shoulder, jacket on, coffee mug in hand. Jordan, he said, nodding to me. Then he turned to the security guards. Gentlemen, I'll be heading down as well. The elevator arrived. We stepped in. The guards looked confused but said nothing. As the door started to close, I saw Sarah Chen from Legal stand up from her desk in the open workspace, pull on her coat, and walk toward the elevator bank. The doors closed. Logan looked straight ahead, expression neutral. You don't have to do this, I said quietly. Yeah, I do, he replied. The elevator descended. 38, 37, 36. At the 35th floor, the doors opened and Marcus Reynolds from operations got in. Overnight bag already packed. Logan, he said in greeting. Then to me, Jordan. Nobody spoke as we continued down. At the 28th floor, the doors opened again. Elena Rodriguez from engineering, carrying a box of her own belongings. The security guards were starting to look uncertain. By the time we reached the lobby, the elevator had stopped 4 more times. Each time, another employee got in, belongings in hand, expression determined. The doors opened onto the marble lobby with its soaring ceilings and modernist art. I stepped out, security still flanking me, and started toward the exit. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Multiple sets of footsteps. I reached the revolving door and pushed through into the gray Seattle afternoon. The parking garage was across the plaza, past the fountain, and the carefully manicured trees that cost the company 6 figures annually to maintain. I walked across the plaza, my heels clicking on the wet pavement. And as I walked, I became aware of a presence building behind me, a quiet procession of people who'd made a choice. I reached my car in the garage and finally turned around. 22 people stood in a loose group behind me. Logan, Sarah, Marcus, Elena, David Kim from sales, Tom Patterson from operations, he'd left the meeting and followed. Jennifer Wu, the CFO, was there too, her expression torn between shock and resolution. "What are you all doing?" I asked, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. "The right thing," Logan said simply. "What Nathan did up there was wrong. What he said was disgusting. And every single person here has been thinking about leaving for months because of how he runs this company. You just gave us a reason to actually do it? He called you a diversity hire," Sarah said, anger making her voice shake. "In front of the entire leadership team. As if your 3 years of exceptional performance meant nothing. As if you didn't earn every promotion through talent and hard work." "I've been documenting HR violations for 8 months," Alina added. "Discrimination, harassment, retaliation. Nathan's created a toxic environment, but nobody wants to speak up because he destroys anyone who challenges him." Tom stepped forward, looking uncomfortable. "I should have said something in that meeting. I should have defended you. I didn't, and I'm ashamed of that. But I'm saying something now." He pulled out his phone and held it up so I could see the email draft on the screen. "A resignation letter dated today, citing hostile work environment and discriminatory leadership practices. We're all resigning," Marcus confirmed. "Effective immediately, and we're all citing today's incident as the reason. By the time the board finishes their emergency meeting, they're going to have 22 resignation letters documenting exactly what Nathan said and did." I felt something tight in my chest begin to crack. "You could all be blacklisted. Nathan has influence across the industry. This could destroy your careers. So could staying silent while he destroys yours," Logan replied. "Besides, I've been talking to some people. There are companies who would be very interested in hiring a team of 22 highly skilled professionals who just walked away from Apex Technologies on principle." "What people?" I asked carefully. Logan's smile was small and knowing. "Let's just say that the tech community in Seattle is smaller than you think, and Nathan's reputation isn't as solid as he believes. There are venture capitalists who've been waiting for someone to challenge Apex's dominance. And a mass walkout of top talent? That's the kind of story that gets attention." My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, an email from the board of directors requesting my presence at an emergency meeting in 1 hour. "They want to talk," I said. "Of course they do," Jennifer said dryly. 22 senior employees just walked out. That's millions in institutional knowledge, active projects, client relationships. The Q4 earnings call is in 3 weeks, and half the people who can speak intelligently about our product roadmap just quit. Sarah was already pulling out her own phone. "I'm calling my contact at Harrison and Price. They're the best employment law firm in Seattle. You need representation, Jordan. I can't afford." "You won't need to. This is clear-cut discrimination and retaliation. They'll take it on contingency." Sarah was already dialing. "And I'm going to recommend they look into a class action. Because I guarantee you're not the only person Nathan's targeted." My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Nathan Graves. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. This time, Richard Pearson, chairman of the board. I answered. "Mr. Pearson, Jordan, where are you?" His voice was tight with stress. "We need you in the boardroom immediately. I'm in the parking garage, having just been escorted out by security on Mr. Graves's orders." "Yes, about that. There's been a misunderstanding." "We'd like to discuss." "There's been no misunderstanding, Mr. Pearson. Your CEO called me a diversity hire and said my work was substandard, despite 3 years of documented excellence. He demoted me in front of the leadership team, then had security escort me out like a criminal. That's not a misunderstanding. That's discrimination. Jordan, please, let's not escalate this. I'm sure we can reach an agreement." 22 employees just walked out with me, I said calmly. They're all citing today's incident in their resignation letters. By this time tomorrow, every tech publication in Seattle will be running the story. Your Q4 earnings call is going to be very interesting when analysts ask why you lost your entire senior product development team. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you want? I want you to do the right thing. But we both know that's not going to happen. I paused. My attorney will be in touch. Goodbye, Mr. Pearson. I ended the call and looked at the 22 people who had walked away from security and paychecks to stand with me in a parking garage on a gray Tuesday afternoon. "Thank you," I said, and my voice cracked despite my best efforts. "Thank you for seeing me, for believing me, for being brave enough to walk away." "We didn't walk away," Logan said. We walked forward. There's a difference. The law firm of Harrison and Price occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Seattle. By 4 p.m. that same day, I was sitting in a conference room with an attorney named Michael Harrison, who'd listened to my story with the intense focus of someone cataloging every legally actionable detail. This is one of the clearest cases of discrimination and retaliation I've seen in 20 years. Michael said, making notes on his tablet. Public statement calling you a diversity hire. Demotion without cause despite documented excellent performance. Security escort designed to humiliate. And 22 witnesses who can corroborate the hostile environment. What are my options? I asked. File a discrimination complaint with the EEOC. Pursue a civil lawsuit for wrongful termination, hostile work environment, and reputational damage. Depending on what we find during discovery, potentially expand to a class action if there are other victims. Michael looked up from his notes. But Jordan, I want to be very direct with you. Nathan Graves is a billionaire with unlimited legal resources. This will be a long, difficult fight. He'll try to bury you in motions and discovery. He'll investigate every aspect of your life looking for ammunition. He'll use his media connections to control the narrative. I know, I said. But I have something he doesn't. What's that? The truth. And 22 witnesses willing to testify about what he's really like. Michael smiled grimly. Then let's make sure everyone hears it. I'll have the EEOC complaint filed by end of day tomorrow. In the meantime, I need you to write down everything, every incident, every conversation, every email that shows a pattern of discriminatory behavior. Can you do that? I've already been doing it, I said, pulling out a USB drive. 4 months of documentation. Emails, meeting notes, performance reviews, budget reports. Everything that proves my work was excellent and this termination was retaliation. Michael took the drive looking impressed. You were prepared. I had to be. I knew he was coming for me. I just didn't know when. I hesitated. There's something else. About 3 months ago, I noticed irregularities in some budget reports. Expenses that didn't make sense, vendor contracts that looked suspicious. I started documenting those too because I thought maybe Nathan was trying to frame me for financial impropriety. Do you have evidence of fraud? I have questions, patterns that don't add up. But I'm not a forensic accountant. I couldn't prove anything definitively. I was planning to take it to the board quietly, but Nathan moved faster than I expected. Michael leaned forward. Jordan, if there's financial fraud involved, this case becomes exponentially more serious. Would you be willing to have a forensic accountant review your documentation? Yes, but I want protection. If there really is fraud and Nathan realizes I was onto him, he'll do everything possible to destroy me. We'll file for a protective order. And I'm going to recommend we bring this to the attention of the SEC. If Apex Technologies is engaged in financial fraud, that's a federal crime. Michael pulled out his phone. I'm calling David Silverman. He's the best forensic accountant in the Pacific Northwest. If there's fraud in those files, he'll find it. The story broke 48 hours later. I was in my apartment reviewing documents with Michael when my phone started buzzing with news alerts. Mass walkout at Apex Technologies, 22 senior employees. Resign after CEO's alleged discriminatory comments. Discrimination lawsuit filed against Apex. Technologies CEO Nathan Graves, tech industry reckoning. Witnesses. Describe hostile environment at billion-dollar startup. The articles all told the same story. A respected director publicly humiliated and terminated. A CEO's racist comments. A mass exodus of senior talent. By evening, Nathan's name was trending on social media, and the comments section was filled with similar stories from former Apex employees. I worked at Apex for 2 years. Nathan's behavior was an open secret. Multiple women complained about harassment and were forced out. I'm not surprised. Nathan made diversity hire comments regularly in meetings.
Hide or nothing. Former engineer here.
Nathan created a toxic culture where only white men were taken seriously. Everyone else was there for appearances. My phone rang. Michael Harrison. Jordan, you need to see this, he said without preamble. Check your email. David Silverman just sent his preliminary forensic analysis. I opened my laptop and pulled up the email. The subject line read, Urgent evidence of systematic fraud. My hands trembled as I opened the attached report. David's analysis was devastating. The irregularities I'd noticed were actually a sophisticated embezzlement scheme. Nathan had been funneling company funds through fake vendor contracts, billing Apex for services that were never provided, and routing the money through shell companies he controlled. The total amount, $42 million over 6 years. And the brilliant, damning detail, he'd recently begun putting my name on some of the fraudulent documents, setting up a narrative where I was the corrupt one if anyone ever investigated. He was building me as his scapegoat, I said, my voice hollow. Yes, Michael confirmed. And by firing you when he did, he probably saved you from being charged with crimes you didn't commit. Once you were gone, he could have claimed you'd been the one embezzling. And all the documentation pointed to you. What do? We take this to the FBI immediately. This isn't just civil litigation anymore, Jordan. This is federal fraud. And you're a witness, not a suspect. Michael paused. But I need you to understand, when this comes out, it's going to be a media firestorm. Your name will be everywhere. Nathan will claim you're making false accusations. His attorneys will attack your credibility. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Nathan's face when he'd called me a diversity hire. The satisfaction in his voice when he'd had security escort me out. The casual cruelty of someone who'd never faced real consequences in his life. I'm ready, I said. Let's take him down. The FBI raid happened at 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning. I wasn't there to see it, but Sarah, who still had friends at Apex, called me with a play-by-play. Federal agents had descended on Apex Technologies headquarters with warrants for documents, computers, and financial records. Nathan had been in his office when they arrived, reportedly trying to delete files from his laptop when agents stopped him. By 8 a.m., Nathan Graves was in FBI custody, facing preliminary charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. By noon, Apex's stock had dropped 42%. By 3 p.m., the board of directors had issued a statement announcing Nathan immediate termination and the appointment of an interim CEO. By 5 p.m., my phone was ringing off the hook with interview requests, job offers, and messages of support from people across the tech industry. I ignored most of them. But there was one call I answered, Richard Pearson, chairman of the board. Jordan, he said, and his voice sounded 20 years older than it had 3 days ago. I owe you an apology, multiple apologies. We failed you. I failed you. We should have seen what Nathan was doing, should have investigated your concerns instead of dismissing them. Yes, you should have, I said simply. The board would like to offer you reinstatement. Full back pay, promotion to vice president of product development, equity grant, public apology, whatever it takes to make this right. I almost laughed. You think I'd come back to a company that let Nathan humiliate me, escort me out with security, and destroy my reputation? A company that stood by while he built a case to frame me for crimes he committed? We didn't know. You chose not to know. There's a difference. But I appreciate the offer. I'll have my attorney review the severance terms. I'm sure we can reach an appropriate settlement given the circumstances. Jordan, we're prepared to offer 8 figures to resolve this matter. Name your price. I'll let my attorney do that. Goodbye, Mr. Pearson. I ended the call and looked at the 22 people gathered in my living room. We'd been meeting here every evening since the walkout, planning our next move, supporting each other through the chaos. They offered you money, Logan said. It wasn't a question. 8 figures, apparently. They're terrified of the lawsuit and the publicity. I set down my phone. But money isn't what I want. What do you want? Sarah asked. I want to build something better. Something where people are valued for their talent, not their demographics. Where discrimination has consequences. Where leaders are held accountable. I pulled out my laptop and opened the business plan I'd been working on for the past 3 days. I want to start a company that does it right. The document on screen read, Phoenix Technologies. Building the future through inclusive innovation. I've been talking to venture capitalists, I continued. The story of our walkout got their attention. The fact that 22 senior professionals chose principal over paychecks got their attention. And the fact that we're all available as a team got their attention. I turned the laptop so everyone could see. I have preliminary funding commitments totaling $7.5 million. I have 3 VCS competing to lead our Series A, and I have a waiting list of clients who want to work with us instead of Apex. Jennifer Wu was reading over my shoulder, her eyes widening. Jordan, this is incredible. You put together a full business plan in 3 days? I've been thinking about this for months. I knew I'd have to leave Apex eventually. Nathan wasn't going to stop until he either destroyed me or removed me. I just didn't know it would happen quite this dramatically. I looked around at the faces watching me. But here's the thing. I can't do this alone. I need all of you. Your expertise, your relationships, your willingness to take a risk on something new. What exactly are you proposing? Marcus asked. Phoenix Technologies, a product development firm focused on innovative solutions for emerging markets. We'll be worker-owned. Everyone who joins at founding gets equity. We'll have transparent salary bands, clear promotion criteria, and a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination or harassment. We'll build the kind of company we all wished Apex had been. You're serious about this? Tom said, studying the business plan. Completely serious. I'm putting $2 million of my settlement money into the company as seed capital. With the VC funding, we'll have close to $10 million to work with. That's enough to hire 50 people, lease office space, and run for 18 months while we build our client base. I paused. But I need you all to decide if you're in. Because this won't be easy. We'll be competing against established companies with more resources. We'll face skepticism. Nathan will probably try to sabotage us. But if we do this right, we can build something genuinely great. Logan was the first to speak. I'm in. I didn't walk away from Apex just to go work for another company exactly like it. Let's build something better. In, Sarah said immediately. In from Marcus. Around the room, one by one, all 22 people committed to the venture. By the end of the evening, Phoenix Technologies had a founding team, a business plan, and a mission. We were going to prove that you could build a successful company on principles instead of exploitation. The settlement with Apex Technologies came through 6 weeks later, $12 million, a public apology from the board, an acknowledgement that I had been wrongfully terminated and subjected to discrimination. The settlement also included a clause requiring Apex to implement comprehensive diversity training and establish an independent ethics board. Nathan's criminal trial was scheduled for the following year. Federal prosecutors had 42 million reasons to believe they'd secure a conviction, and Nathan's legal team was already trying to negotiate a plea deal. The word from Michael Harrison was that Nathan was looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Meanwhile, Phoenix Technologies was coming to life. We'd leased a renovated warehouse in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, exposed brick, high ceilings, and open floor plan that encouraged collaboration. Sarah had designed the space with input from the entire team. Jennifer had hired 12 additional engineers and designers. Marcus had secured our first 3 major clients, including 2 who'd left Apex specifically to work with us. Our launch announcement made headlines. Phoenix Rising. Former Apex employees build worker-owned tech company on principles of inclusion and excellence. The response was overwhelming. We received over 500 job applications in the first week. 8 more clients reached out with project inquiries. And 2 additional VC firms offered to invest, pushing our Series A funding to $15 million. 3 months after the walkout, I stood in the center of Phoenix's main workspace and watched 75 people collaborate on projects that would define our first year. Former Apex employees working alongside new hires we'd carefully selected for talent and cultural fit. Engineers partnering with designers, product managers working with developers, everyone contributing to something bigger than themselves. Logan found me by the coffee station. "You look happy." "I am," I said, surprised to realize it was true. 3 months ago, I was being escorted out by security, humiliated and terrified. Now I'm building a company from scratch with people I trust and respect. It's terrifying in a different way, but it's good. The Q1 projections came in, Logan said, pulling up his tablet. We're tracking ahead of plan. If we maintain this pace, we'll be profitable by Q3. That would be remarkable. It's not remarkable. It's what happens when you have talented people who are actually valued and respected. Turns out people work harder when they're treated like human beings. Logan paused. Have you seen the latest about Nathan? I shook my head. I'd been trying to avoid news about Apex and Nathan, focusing instead on building Phoenix. His plea deal fell through. The prosecution has too much evidence, and they're not willing to go below 15 years. Trial set for February. Logan's expression was grim. His attorneys are trying to claim you fabricated evidence as revenge for being fired. I felt cold. Michael said that might happen. Michael's already filed a motion to dismiss. He's got David Silverman's forensic analysis, testimony from 6 former Apex employees about Nathan's fraud, and your documentation showing you were investigating before Nathan ever fired you. Logan squeezed my shoulder. You're safe, Jordan. The evidence is overwhelming. Nathan's just desperate. Desperate people do dangerous things, which is why you have security on your building and a restraining order keeping Nathan 500 feet away. Logan's voice was firm. We're not letting anything happen to you. You saved yourself by being smart and thorough. Now you're building something amazing. Don't let Nathan take up space in your head. He was right. I'd spent months being afraid of Nathan, months documenting his crimes and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Now that it was over, now that I was free and building something new, I needed to let go of the fear. You're right, I said. Thank you. Anytime. Now, come on. We have a product review meeting in 10 minutes, and Sarah wants your input on the interface redesign. The trial began in February, 8 months after Nathan had me escorted out by security. I sat in the witness box in a federal courthouse, facing a jury of 12 people who would decide whether Nathan Graves spent the next 15 years in prison. Michael Harrison stood beside me, having prepared me for this moment with dozens of practice sessions. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Catherine Morrison, walked me through my story. How I'd discovered irregularities. How I'd documented evidence. How Nathan had fired me with a racist comment and security escort when I got too close to the truth. Ms. Jordan, Catherine said, can you explain to the jury why you believe Nathan Graves fired you? Because I was about to expose his embezzlement scheme, I said clearly. I'd been documenting financial irregularities for months. I'd noticed patterns that suggested fraud. And right before he fired me, I told one of my colleagues I was considering taking my findings to the board. Nathan found out and moved to discredit me before I could reveal what he'd done. Objection, Nathan's attorney called. Speculation. Sustained, the judge said. The witness will stick to facts, not interpretation. Catherine nodded. Ms. Jordan, let me rephrase. What evidence do you have that Nathan Graves was aware of your investigation? I pulled out my phone and referenced my notes. On March 15th, 2 weeks before I was fired, I was in a meeting with Jennifer Wu, our CFO, discussing budget anomalies. That same afternoon, Nathan called me into his office and asked pointed questions about what I was working on. He specifically asked if I'd been reviewing vendor contracts, which I had been. And how did you respond? I told him I was doing routine due diligence for my division's budget planning. He seemed satisfied, but his administrative assistant later told me he spent the rest of the afternoon on the phone with his personal attorney. What happened 2 weeks later? He fired me in front of the entire leadership team, called me a diversity hire, said my work was substandard, and had security escort me out of the building. Catherine pulled up a document on the courtroom display. Is this the performance review you received 3 months before your termination? I looked at the screen. My annual review showing exceeds expectations in every category with specific praise for my leadership and strategic thinking. Yes, and is this the email from Nathan Graves sent 1 week before your termination, praising your work on the Q3 product launch? Another document appeared. Nathan, guest email specifically commending my exceptional leadership and strategic vision. Yes. So in the span of 1 week, your work went from exceptional to substandard? According to Nathan, yes. Catherine let that sit with the jury. Thank you, Ms. Jordan. No further questions. Nathan's attorney, a man named Richard Blackwell, who charged $1,500 an hour, stood for cross-examination. Ms. Jordan, isn't it true that you had a personal vendetta against Nathan Graves? No. You didn't resent his success? His position? The fact that he was your superior? I respected competence and integrity. Nathan demonstrated neither. Isn't it true that you fabricated evidence of financial fraud as revenge for being fired? No, I documented irregularities I discovered while doing my job. Forensic analysis by an independent accountant confirmed systematic embezzlement totaling $42 million. That's not revenge, that's evidence. But you only came forward with this supposed evidence after you were terminated. I came forward 3 days after being terminated because I needed legal protection before exposing a billionaire's crimes. If I'd gone to the board while still employed, Nathan would have destroyed me and buried the evidence. I waited until I had documentation and legal representation. Convenient timing. Strategic timing, I corrected. There's a difference. The cross-examination continued for 2 hours, but Blackwell couldn't shake my testimony. I had documentation for everything. I had witnesses who corroborated my account. I had forensic evidence that couldn't be explained away. When I finally stepped down from the witness stand, I felt exhausted but solid. I told the truth. Now it was up to the jury. The verdict came back after 3 days of deliberation, guilty on all counts. Nathan Graves was convicted of wire fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, and identity theft. The judge sentenced him to 18 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. I was entering the courtroom when the verdict was read. Michael had advised me to stay away to avoid media attention, but Sarah called me immediately with the news. 18 years, she said. He'll be 66 when he gets out. His company is gone. His reputation is destroyed. His fortune is seized. Everything he built through theft and cruelty is ashes. I sat in my office at Phoenix Technologies, looking out at the team working on projects that would define our future, and felt something heavy lift from my shoulders. Good, I said quietly. That's good. How are you feeling? Relieved, vindicated, tired, grateful. Grateful. If Nathan hadn't fired me that day, if those 22 people hadn't walked out with me, I wouldn't have Phoenix. I wouldn't have this team. I wouldn't have proven that you can build something successful on integrity instead of exploitation. Nathan meant to destroy you, Sarah said. Instead, he freed you to become something better. After we hung up, I stood at my office window for a long time, watching the Seattle skyline shimmer in afternoon light. A year ago, I'd been escorted out by security, humiliated in front of colleagues, dismissed as a diversity hire whose work was substandard. Now I was the founder and CEO of a thriving company valued at $50 million. I'd exposed a fraud scheme that would have destroyed hundreds of lives. I'd built a team based on mutual respect and shared values. I'd proven that diverse leadership wasn't charity, it was excellence. Nathan had tried to erase me. Instead, I'd erased everything he'd built through lies. My phone buzzed with a text from Logan. Team meeting in 10. Big announcement about Series B funding. I smiled and headed for the conference room. Phoenix was growing faster than we'd projected, and we needed capital to scale. The Series B round would value us at over $100 million and fund expansion into 3 new markets. A year ago, I'd been carrying a box of personal items to my car while security escorted me out. Now I was building an empire. The universe has a funny sense of justice sometimes. Epilogue: 2 years after the walkout, I received an unexpected email. The subject line read, Apex Technologies acquisition offer. I opened it with curiosity. Richard Pearson, who'd remained as chairman after Nathan's conviction, had written personally, Jordan, I hope this message finds you well. I've watched Phoenix Technologies grow from a startup to a major player in our industry, and I'm impressed by everything you've built. Apex is struggling. We lost our innovative edge when you and your team left. We've hemorrhaged talent, lost major clients, and our stock remains 30% below pre-scandal levels. Meanwhile, Phoenix has become everything we should have been. I'd like to discuss Phoenix acquiring Apex's product development division. You'd gain our infrastructure, patents, and remaining client base. We'd gain leadership that actually values innovation and integrity. I know this is unconventional. I know you have every reason to refuse. But I believe it would benefit both companies, and more importantly, it would mean you rebuilding something that was broken into something better. Please consider it. Richard, I forwarded the email to Sarah, Logan, Jennifer, and Marcus with one line. Thoughts? Within an hour, all 4 were in my office. Are you seriously considering this? Sarah asked. I'm considering whether it makes strategic sense, I said. Apex's product division has valuable patents and established client relationships. If we acquired them, we'd double our market share overnight. It would also mean absorbing some of Apex's toxic culture, Marcus pointed out. The people who stayed after Nathan was arrested chose to stay. That says something about their values. We'd need to do extensive due diligence, Jennifer said, already pulling up financial projections. Cultural assessment, client retention analysis. Evaluation of which employees would fit with Phoenix's values. Logan was reading the email over my shoulder. Richard's essentially admitting that Apex is failing without you. That's significant. It means the board acknowledges what we all knew. Nathan wasn't the genius you were. This isn't about ego, I said. It's about whether we can take something broken and rebuild it into something better. Whether we can prove that inclusive, ethical leadership isn't just morally right, it's better business. Sarah leaned back in her chair, studying me. You want to do this? I want to prove a point, I admitted. Nathan spent years claiming I was unqualified, substandard, a diversity hire who couldn't handle complexity. Now his company is failing and mine is thriving. Acquiring Apex would be the ultimate demonstration that everything he believed was wrong. That's valid, Marcus said. But it's also risky. We'd be taking on a damaged brand, potentially toxic employees, and legal liability from Nathan's remaining crimes. All of which can be managed, Jennifer countered. If we structure this as an asset acquisition rather than a merger, we can cherry-pick what we want: patents, key clients, specific employees, and leave behind the liabilities. And we'd be in a position to reshape an entire company culture, Sarah added. To prove that it's possible to take something toxic and transform it, I looked at the 4 people who'd walked out of Apex with me 2 years ago, who'd taken a risk on Phoenix when it was just an idea and $7.5 million in funding. Who'd helped build something genuinely good. Let's do due diligence, I decided. Full assessment, cultural, financial, legal. If the numbers work and we can structure it to protect Phoenix's values, we'll consider a formal offer. But we don't compromise who we are for market share. Agreed? Agreed, they said in unison. 3 months later, Phoenix Technologies acquired Apex's product development division for $85 million. We absorbed 37 employees who'd passed our rigorous cultural assessment, acquired 12 valuable patents, and inherited Apex's largest remaining clients. The press had a field day with the story. Phoenix rises from Apex ashes. Founder returns to transform company that once fired her. But the real story wasn't about revenge or redemption. It was about proving that businesses built on integrity, inclusion, and excellence don't just survive, they thrive. On my first day back in Apex S building, now the Phoenix Technologies' second campus, I walked through the lobby where I'd once been escorted out by security. The security guards were different now, hired by Phoenix with training that emphasized dignity and respect rather than intimidation. I took the elevator to the top floor, where Nathan's corner office had once been. We'd converted it into a collaborative workspace with glass walls, comfortable furniture, and a sign that read, "Innovation Space, all welcome." No more corner offices for executives. No more hierarchy based on title rather than contribution. No more culture where people were valued based on who they knew rather than what they contributed. Sarah found me standing in what used to be Nathan's office, looking out at the Seattle skyline. "Feels different, doesn't it?" she said. "Everything's different," I replied. 2 years ago, I was being escorted out of this building, humiliated and terrified. Now I own it, not just own it. Transformed it. I thought about Nathan serving year 3 of his 18-year sentence in federal prison. I'd heard through Michael Harrison that Nathan had written me several letters, apologies, explanations, pleas for forgiveness. I'd never opened them. His regret didn't undo what he'd done, and I didn't need his apology to know I'd made the right choices. You know what the best part is? I said to Sarah, it's not that I succeeded and he failed. It's that I built something genuinely good. Something that proves you can be profitable and ethical. Something that proves diverse leadership isn't a weakness, it's a strategic advantage. Nathan thought he was punishing you by firing you publicly, Sarah observed. Instead, he freed you to become exactly what he feared, someone better than him. My phone buzzed with a notification. Phoenix Technologies Q2 earnings report. Revenue up 47% year over year. Employee satisfaction scores at 93%. Client retention at 98%. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. And Nathan Graves, the Billionaire CEO who'd called me a diversity hire and had me escorted out by security, was a number in a federal prison, facing 16 more years of consequences for his choices. Sometimes justice is slow. Sometimes it requires patience and strategy and the courage to document truth when everyone else wants to ignore it. But eventually, if you're thorough enough and brave enough and smart enough, Justice wins. I'd proven that. And I wasn't done yet.